Exactly 11:25 p.m., October 13, 2025. A cold launch order was transmitted directly to a hidden field control room in the town of Izium, Kharkiv Oblast. At the center of the bunker, the technical team, codenamed Legion, wearing FPV goggles, gave the go-ahead the moment the attack signal arrived. Within 15 seconds, 80 kamikaze FPV drones came to life simultaneously. Launched from preset platforms across the secure zone near the border, propeller engines roared as the drones shot skyward. The target, Arzamas Substation, one of the three most critical energy hubs in the Nizhny Novgorod region of southwestern Russia. This station supplies power to more than 250,000 households daily, located deep inside Russia's safe zone, and shielded by multiple layers of air defense systems worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Moscow believed it was untouchable, but Ukraine was about to show them what modern warfare looks like. With a swarm of decoy drones, 20 surgical strike vectors, and a plan calibrated to the centimeter, the 80 drones were divided into 4 groups, each consisting of 20 UAVs, taking off in perfect 10-second intervals after crossing the border. The first swarm of decoy UAVs immediately broke formation. These 60 decoy drones were cobbled together from reinforced 5-inch steel frames, a batch of DJI Mavic 3s smuggled from Poland, and several defective kamikaze drones, all fused into the opening act of a hellish script, Chaos. Split into clusters, flying at varied altitudes and attacking from multiple vectors, the radar screen of the 91 N6E tracking system instantly began to overload. Russian radar operators initially thought it was a system glitch, but after 15 seconds, warning flags flooded the display. They scrambled to draft a report for command. Speed, 93 miles per hour, approximately 150 kilometers per hour. Altitudes range from 164 to 328 feet, 50 to 100 meters. Radar cross-sections, RCS, varied between 0.01 and 0.1 square meters. Not birds, not weather anomalies. The AI classifier concluded UAVS. Inside the C2 room, what was once dismissed as noise now became red alerts. The threat classification system flagged small cross-section targets, a drone swarm, not worth using large missiles. Solution, mid-range Panzer S-1 interceptors. What was unfolding wasn't a suicide mission. It was cold mathematical warfare in the 21st century. In Kiev, satellite imagery from Maxar and Planet Labs had mapped every rooftop, transformer, and fuel tank, turning the Arzamas grid into a digital kill list updated weekly. A volley of 57 E-6E interceptor missiles roared from 4 Panzer S-1 batteries, surging straight toward the wall of drones Ukraine had created. The teller-mounted fire control system locked on. Targets were within 15,700 feet, approximately 4,800 meters. 10 seconds to impact. Russia's reaction played out exactly as Kiev had predicted. As interceptors collided with the drone swarm, dozens of small fireballs erupted mid-air. The sky briefly lit up with flares and the debris of UAV carcasses rained onto the terrain below. Each decoy drone cost less than $600 to build, but the return on investment, astounding. For just $36,000, Ukraine forced Russia to burn through 48 Panzer missiles while simultaneously blinding, jamming, and fragmenting its regional radar systems. But above all, the drones opened a corridor, a clear, unguarded attack lane for the main strike group, using the oldest trick in the book, stealing every pair of eyes. It was like looking through a hotel door peephole. You can see who's knocking, but you have no idea what's below their waistline. And under that metaphorical door frame, 20 AN-196 Lyuchi attack drones were creeping forward at an altitude of just 98 feet, approximately 30 meters. Meanwhile, the Russian side, they were cheering, unaware that what they had just destroyed was only an empty shell. The real threat was now steady, silent, and deadly. At 4:11 a.m., with the Arzamas target just 18 miles, approximately 30 kilometers away, 20 AN-196 Lyuchi kamikaze UAVs began entering the final engagement envelope. On Ukrainian intelligence maps, this sector was marked in red, a mobile Tor M2 radar unit positioned near Auxiliary Distribution Station Number 3, adjacent to the internal railway line. Danger zone, 10 miles, approximately 16 kilometers. Radius with a reaction time of only 6 to 8 seconds. But these were no longer ordinary drones. Each AN-196 was equipped with the Griffon KINS inertial navigation module, a domestically built derivative of an Israeli MIL spec chipset, achieving guidance errors under 26 feet, approximately 8 meters, allowing for GPS-independent flight. The exterior was coated in radar-absorbing material, RAM, a composite of epoxy, ferrite, and carbon fiber, reducing radar cross-section, RCS, to just approximately 0.03 square meters, smaller than a 60-millimeter mortar shell. At the nose of each drone sat a passive scattering blade module, designed to disperse radar reflections and distort waveforms, preventing Tor's radar from locking onto them effectively within an EW-contaminated environment. The Tor M2 activated its radar. The signal processor instantly picked up faint, flickering contacts, flying low, under 130 feet, approximately 40 meters. The system's auto-classifier labeled them as low-altitude noise, suspicious, unconfirmed. The crew withheld fire. Meanwhile, the 20 AN-196 initiated their final suppression phase, reducing speed to 68 miles per hour, approximately 110 kilometers per hour, and dropping altitude to just 65 feet, approximately 20 meters, below the Tor's main scan plane. Over the next 90 seconds, the entire Tor M2 defensive shell was bypassed, without a single round fired. The AN-196s maintained total radio silence, no image feed, no command ping, relying solely on dual-core onboard processors to calculate range, terrain, and crosswinds like autonomous Kiev-born warriors. At 4:17 a.m. in the final 10 miles, approximately 16 kilometers to the target, an eastern-positioned Buk M2 launcher linked to a Kupol 9S 18M13 surveillance radar began scanning. It had the range to detect low-flying objects if they emitted signals. Buk M2, unlike Tor M2, didn't wait for close contact. Kupol picked up weak interference at range, bearing 210 degrees, altitude below 165 feet, approximately 50 meters, speed 80 to 95 miles per hour, approximately 130 to 150 kilometers per hour. The track was faint, but consistent. Still, the Buk team held fire. The system flagged classification, possible low-band interference, RCS less than 0.05 square meters, insufficient lock confidence. They had no idea what was coming wasn't a swarm of consumer-grade quadcopters. Each AN-196 Luchi R4 variant carried a Foxtail 2 anti-locking module, a frequency-deforming radar reflection chip. When Buk tried to lock on, the drone returned out-of-phase reflections, disrupting the radar's echo stability. The system couldn't reach sufficient track confidence. The Buk didn't fire. Each drone's ram skin, a multi-layer epoxy ferrite carbon composite, absorbed 60 to 70% of incoming X-band radiation. Wing edges were constructed from non-structural composite materials, scattering radar waves rather than reflecting them, shredding radar profiles during standard bank maneuvers. They held steady at 85 miles per hour, approximately 140 kilometers per hour, no ping, no feed, flying blind by high-resolution digital terrain maps, guided by MEMS 6-axis micro-INS units. At this point, Buk had stopped tracking. Kupol radar continued sweeping, but there was nothing clean left to lock. The sky ahead, just 6 miles, approximately 10 kilometers from Arzamas, had become a radar void. As they reached the final release point, 5 miles, approximately 8 kilometers from the substation, a R330ZH Jetel jammer was running silently nearby, flooding L1 and L2 bands, blacking out all satellite positioning, civilian or military, within an 18-mile, 30 kilometers radius, but Ukraine had predicted this. The primary navigation core on each AN-196 Lyuti was the Griffon KI system, an advanced micro-INS suite with integrated pressure sensors, paired with high-resolution 3D terrain maps. Each drone also featured a trajectory correction system using infrared visual terrain matching, comparing ground features in real time to stored imagery. It required no GPS. It needed no operator. The effectiveness of Russia's electronic warfare, nearly zero. At 4:23 a.m., the Arzamas Substation emerged into view through the backup optical camera mounted on each drone's nose. At that moment, bursts of Zu-23 autocannon fire rang out from an auxiliary building. A makeshift anti-aircraft team had opened fire after spotting an unidentified object overhead. The entire site had only 2 Zu-23 setups mounted on manual tripods, fired by eyeballing. No fire control radar, no thermal optics. One UAV was hit. A shell tore through its fuselage, causing an in-air explosion. But the others had already slowed and dropped to just 15 meters, approximately 49 feet above ground, weaving through tree lines in pairs at 68 miles per hour, approximately 110 kilometers per hour. Far too fast for human gunners to track with hand-cranked weapons. The UAVs split into 5 strike teams, each aiming for pre-assigned static coordinates. Group 1, main transformers. Group 2, capacitor banks and high-voltage breakers. Group 3, SCADA control building. Group 4, fuel depot. Group 5, transmission towers. Only 30 seconds remained, and Ukraine was about to complete a precision strike on strategic infrastructure nearly 500 miles, 800 kilometers, behind enemy lines. No satellites, no stealth bombers, just cheap, surgical, emotionless blades. One precise hit, and the entire substation would be knocked offline instantly. More than 600,000 Russian civilians who lit their homes using power from Arzamas were now left with 2 choices: eat dinner before sundown, or line up outside supermarkets under signs reading, "Candles sold out." At 4:25 a.m., all in 196 strike teams simultaneously pushed to max throttle. Engines burned through their last drops of fuel. A spearhead lunged forward, detonating, tearing, accelerating to 136 miles per hour, approximately 220 kilometers per hour. The first AN-196 cluster slammed directly into Arzamas's primary 230 kilovolt transformers. Each UAV carried a 55-pound, approximately 25 kilogram HEI warhead, packed to deliver both penetration and incendiary blast. At 1,470 feet, approximately 450 meters out, the group dove sharply, a 15-degree wing fold, nose angled down, and the HEI warheads entered arming phase. Infrared belly sensors registered a glowing white hotspot, the transformer core operating at full load. Upon impact with the 12mm steel shielding, the HEI charge punched through using a copper-lined shaped cone. 0.25 seconds later, the warhead exploded inside the 30,000-liter oil-insulated tank. The first detonation released a thermal pulse of 4,700 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately 2,600 degrees Celsius, vaporizing the surrounding oil instantly. Sudden pressure expansion ruptured the casing. The unit blew apart like a steel artillery shell. Strike Team 2, approaching from the northeast at a 45-degree offset to avoid heat and smoke from the first strike, used live infrared mapping to lock targets. The Technical Operations Building, the SCADA hub, tin roofing coated in insulation, 2-story reinforced brick and light concrete structure. They attacked in unison. A clean wing fold, a dive straight into the second-floor window housing the primary SCADA control cabinets. The confined blast reverberated off concrete walls, generating a reverse pressure shockwave that tore the roof clean off. Strike Team 3 suddenly nosedived like a hawk in a killing swoop. No lights, no emissions. The night sky remained silent until a deep, sharp explosion ripped through it. The blast shattered the western wall, ejecting the roof and triggering a chain reaction in nearby capacitor banks and secondary transformers. A fireball soared 98 feet, approximately 30 meters, into the air, painting the northern skyline in red. Thick black smoke poured into access corridors. Ambient temperatures surged. Later thermal satellite imagery showed the zone glowing white-hot in the infrared spectrum. reaching over 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately 900 degrees Celsius, at ground zero. Team 4 struck the 220 kilovolt grid intake and feed station on the compound's southeastern side. Within 6 seconds, the first sound emerged, a metallic crunch, followed by a high-intensity detonation that shook the substation's reinforced concrete foundation. Power was cut instantly, and the entire city of Arzamas plunged into total blackout within 30 seconds. Team 5 arrived amidst the chaos. They weren't the main thrust, they were the finishers with a simple, ruthless task. When everything burns, make sure nothing can come back. Flames surged violently, consuming the auxiliary wing. Smoke thickened, laced with the choking stench of burning oil. Fire Station Number 14, located 2.5 miles, approximately 4 kilometers away, declared a Level 3 emergency. The first fire truck, a kamikaze 43,114, arrived quickly but had to stop 656 feet, approximately 200 meters, from the gate due to extreme heat and secondary blasts from incompletely detonated capacitor banks. In Moscow, no official statement was released. The Ministry of Defense stayed silent. Rossetti, operator of the Arzamas power grid, twisted the facts in its first press release. A major technical incident caused by internal short-circuiting. The cause is under investigation. But on the ground, the truth burned black in every rising plume. In Kyiv, there was no press conference, no declaration of victory, no need for symbols. Nothing more needed to be said. They were done, and they knew. Another call would come. Another mission would need them, soon. Mission completed.